How's it going, everyone? The PlayStation Store is having a bunch of different sales running right now. We've got an indie sale, we've got the double discount sale, a lot of great deals, and Days of Play is still running, but in this video I want to highlight games under the price of $10, so let's just get right into it. Before we get started, a word from our sponsor. Protecting your online data has become more important than ever with the prevalence of the internet. Personal information is something that you should absolutely care about. It is of premium value and you should do everything in your power to protect it. Data brokers are making money selling your info to robocallers, spammers, and others who view you as an easy target to then profit themselves. That's where today's sponsor comes in, Aura. Aura identifies data brokers who are using your personal information, exposing it, and submits all of the opt-out requests for you. Brokers are legally required to remove your info if asked. However, if you do it yourself, there's a lot of hurdles you gotta go through, and they make it incredibly hard to do so. Aura streamlines this entire process and navigates it for you. You can try Aura for 2 weeks using my link. That's aura.com/gamecross. We'll leave a link in the description box below. Aura features the whole gamut of protection. You've got parental controls, VPNs, antivirus, password management, identity theft insurance, and much more, all for an incredibly affordable price. Check out the link in the description box below to protect your valuable personal information. Now, on to the video. First up, we have Borderlands: The Handsome Collection, which is down to $9.99. Now, the game is available through PlayStation Plus Premium, but for those of you that don't have it, this is a fantastic offer, given that you got Borderlands 2, Borderlands the pre-sequel, and the majority of the DLC for both games. I was about to say all the DLC, but Borderlands 2 is, of course, missing Commander Lilith and the fight for Sanctuary, but that's not a big deal. Borderlands 2 is terrific. In my opinion, that is where the Borderlands franchise absolutely peaked. I thought it was kind of downhill from there. Like, pre-sequel was alright, but I don't think Borderlands 3 is nearly as good as 2. I think 2, from the standpoint of the content, comedy, story, everything about Borderlands 2 I thought was really good, and I've also been vocal about the fact that I think you can play Borderlands solo. Obviously, is it fun with friends? For sure. It's a good co-op title, and if you can get a couple buddies to pick it up, for sure. But if you're just playing it solo, I think it's a good time as well, and to get all that content for sub $10, a ridiculous deal, and a game that'll keep you busy for quite a while. Next up, we have a trifecta of Resident Evil titles I do want to mention. Resident Evil 2, always a good buy. Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Now, if you're getting into Resident Evil, then Resident Evil 2 Remake is a good place to start. That game is tremendous and really kicked off the Capcom Remake initiative with Resident Evil, and they've been doing a tremendous job since then. Resident Evil 5 will probably get remade soon, so that is something to consider. The game is still pretty decent. It is from the 360 PS3 era, so it holds up relatively well. Hopefully they do fix the AI in the remake, but we'll see how that goes down. Resident Evil 5 I really did enjoy, so I think you guys would have a good time with that. And Biohazard obviously is great. That really kicked off the resurgence of Resident Evil more than anything. Resident Evil 2 Remake came out in 2019, but Biohazard I think was early 2017, and that game just ended up being tremendous and really kicked off. You can even go back to that game as kicking off the wave of Capcom just crushing it from a gaming standpoint. Yeah, right around that time. But yeah, all three of those games are great. Obviously, RE4 Remake is tremendous as well, but you're not going to find a sale on that at this stage of the game. Next up, we have Mark of the Ninja Remastered, which is a stealth action title that I like to recommend whenever it goes on sale. Now, the thing about this game is that it's fairly short, so paying $8.99, I don't know, like, these days, there are so many lengthy games that something that's a little bit shorter in length is definitely much appreciated, at least from my vantage point, and I know some of you guys have amassed, like, wild backlogs, but Mark of the Ninja is a quality action stealth game. Great presentation, great visual aesthetic. This version has the DLC, and it has been upgraded to 4K resolution, so that's quite nice as well. For $9, I think it's a pretty good deal, so definitely check that out if you're into action stealth titles. Next up, we have Firewatch at $5.99. Firewatch was a game that came out back in 2016, and I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit divisive because it was super narrative heavy, kind of got that walking sim action going on, but I ended up still really liking the game. I thought narratively it was incredibly compelling. The art direction was fantastic in this game. It's just a gorgeous game to look at, and even all these years later, yeah, it's been 7.5 years since the game came out. Wow, to think about it, but yeah, it still looks fantastic to this day. Definitely a game that at the full price, I could see why people would have their issues with it, but at a $6 price tag, I think it's pretty good, and I would definitely give it a look if you are into more narrative-driven games, where you just take in the ambiance and the atmosphere rather than, you know, action-heavy gameplay or anything like that. Tremendous art style in the game as well, would give it a strong recommendation. Again, a shorter game here as well, but if you're into more narrative-driven adventures where you're, again, taking in the environments and more so the story of the game rather than action-heavy gameplay, I think Firewatch is going to be a game you enjoy. Now, a complete contrast from Firewatch, I also want to give a shout out to Faction Guerrilla Re-Mastered Edition. $5.99 on this. Now, atrocious name of the game aside, like, I remember when this game was revealed to be getting remastered, I'm like, bro, did you really have to call this Remastered Edition? Did we really have to do that? But nonetheless, Red Faction Guerrilla was a game that I played initially when it came out in June of 2009, and I loved it back then. The destructibility was just insane at that time. Just running around with a sledgehammer, destroying buildings, crazy explosions. Obviously, nowadays you have games that do this at a somewhat higher level, but Red Faction Guerrilla, from a destructibility standpoint, I still think holds up fairly well. The story isn't anything I got super invested into, but the gameplay is rather strong, and you know, being a 2009 open world title, it's not as big as some of the other open worlds you'll see these days, but it's still sizable. There's a good bit of content here, and for $5.99, I think it's a good price. Hopefully, you know, THQ does something with the Red Faction here in the near future, but we'll see if that comes to fruition. Next up, we gotta mention some of these Capcom deals because they're quite good on some classic titles. First of all, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy, $9.59 on this. Now, these games absolutely show their age, so you got to keep that in mind. Like, these games are not 2023 titles. They are games that initially came out, I want to say on the Nintendo DS in the States, but they may have come out on the Game Boy in like Japan. Nonetheless, they're very narrative driven and dialogue heavy titles. If you're not a fan of visual novels, you're probably not going to be into these games, but from a storytelling standpoint, character standpoint, these games are incredibly strong, and there's reasons why this franchise has built such a cult fandom. I don't even know if it's fair to say it's a cult fandom at this point. It's just like a really well-recognized game. If you're a fan of story-heavy games, this is one you'll probably enjoy, and you're getting quite a bit of content with the entire trilogy for $9.59, so definitely give that a look. Next up, want to give a shout out to Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, $7.49 on this. Now, I usually recommend the DMC HD Collection with DMC4. That's usually on sale for like $12 or $14, around that range. But if you already have the HD Collection, or you don't want to go back and play DMC 1 through 3 because of their age, well, DMC4 does show its age as well, but not as much, given that it was a PS3 360 era title. It's an enjoyable game. Felt like it had some rushed development elements with a lot of reused areas and whatnot. That was a big talking point when this game initially came out, but the action-heavy gameplay was still fairly good. Nero as a character is alright. I think most people gravitate towards Dante, but, you know, overall still an enjoyable action title. $7.49, a pretty good price on that. Next up, some Mega Man collections. The Mega Man Zero ZX Legacy Collection for $9.59. Tremendous deal on this. You get Mega Man Zero 1 through 4 and Mega Man ZX and ZX Advent. ZX and ZX Advent do not get enough love because they were Nintendo DS titles, but they were fantastic games as well. More Metroidvania Mega Man titles. 0, 1 through 4 were your standard Mega Man games, but incredibly challenging. Like 0, 1 through 4, those games were brutal, but ZX and ZX Advent certainly had challenges as well, but 0, 1 through 4 were shorter games, but just super challenging. Obviously, Mega Man games not known for their length whatsoever, but you know, again, 6 games for a sub $10, that's always going to be a good pickup. And then I also want to give a shout out to the Mega Man X Legacy Collection. That is down to $7.99. Now, they do have the Legacy Collection 1 and 2 for $15.99. You don't really save any money by buying both, so I'm going to gravitate towards the one that is received better in Legacy Collection. And, you know, I'm not in complete agreement with hating on Legacy Collection 2. I liked X5, X6, I get it. People think is super mid. X7, people consider to be trash. I don't think it's that bad. And X8 is generally received to be pretty good. With X Legacy Collection 1, however, you get the games that are received really, really well, but complete throwbacks as well. These games were all either PS1 or before. So X1, X2, X3, and X4. X1, this collection would have been so amazing had they added Maverick Hunter X, I believe it was called the PSP remake, but unfortunately it is the original. I mean, have the original in there for sure, but if we had Maverick Hunter in there as well, that would have been just tremendous. Nonetheless, X1 still a good time. X2, 3, good games as well. X4 is the PS1 game that was one of the very first video games I ever played. Like when I got my PlayStation 1, when I was a wee lad, X4 and Spyro the Dragon were the games that I got. So yeah, obviously a little bit of nostalgia attached to the Blue Bomber for me, but love me some Mega Man, and the X Legacy Collection is fantastic. $7.99 for 4 games. I think that's pretty good. They do have a Rookie Hunter mode if you do, like, want an easy time, but the X games aren't that crazy difficult, like, compared to the OG Mega Man games, which I find to be way more difficult. X is a lot easier, so you probably won't even need that, all things considered. $7.99 for that, pretty good. Next up, we have Saints Row the Third Remastered, $7.99 on this. Just an absolutely nonsensical open world game. Really took Saints Row into a different direction, which I know some people push back on, but overall, it did seemingly make the franchise more popular. I mean, they did more games like this. If you want a nonsensical open world title that you can just mentally kind of check out of, if you have like a long day at work or just a stressful day and you just need something that is complete humor, Saints Row offers you exactly that, and I think most people that play Saints Row the Third, they'll have a pretty decent time with it. At $7.99, I think that's a decent pickup. Next up, we have Felsio Arbiters Mark, $7.49 on this. This is a game that, if you're a fan of tactics RPGs, you'll really enjoy it. Obviously, the biggest comparison point for this game is Final Fantasy Tactics, and it's still probably a ways away for a new FF Tactics, and with me saying that, it'll probably get announced here very soon. But nevertheless, this is a really well done turn-based tactics title with a decent story as well. Great art style. I think it has a really, really colorful art style. You know, for this price, I think it's pretty good if you're into tactics-based games. And then lastly, Ninokuni 2 Revenant Kingdom, $9.59 on this. Good game. I'm not going to say it was as big of a hit as Ninokuni 1. I thought Ninokuni 1 was outstanding, but Ninokuni 2 was still fairly good. Art style here is still tremendous, and there's a ton of content. Some of the gameplay aspects that they did alter, I wasn't crazy about, but overall, the character's story, those elements still landed with me. But that is going to do it for me. Again, a ton of great deals available under the price of $10 right now. Check them all out, and then as always, sound off with your thoughts in the comment section down below. Links to all of the deals in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.